Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. It's my little hula dance, man. I got my little Hawaiian type shirt on, or Filipino type shirt on by the beach. So, welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. As always, we got the round 8 of the Sinquefield Cup going on, and Wesley has returned back from his rest day. So I do have Alireza Firouzja versus Wesley. And this is a very interesting game, if I do say so myself. So let me get all these intros rolling. All of my people from the Philippines, I would say mabuhay, magandang umaga, kumusta na aking mga kaibigan. I appreciate you guys very much for stopping by. Anybody who is coming from France, I will say bonjour. Comment ça va, comment allez-vous? Ça me fait plaisir de te voir, mes amis. Merci beaucoup. Anybody who is coming from Iran or who does speak Farsi, I will say salam, man kelavinam. Kelvin Up Jr. Haley Mamnoon for coming by and taking a look at my stuff. Merci. If you guys are ready to go, man, let's take a look, see what we got for this game, bro. So we got the move E4. We got E5, knight to F3, knight to C6, bishop to C4. Just typical development. I'm trying to attack this little pawn right here. You never know. We got the move bishop to C5. So basically, white and black have very similar ideas. We got D3, we got knight coming to F6, and we do have the Giuoco piano. And it is a Giuoco Pianissimo. But as you guys know, of course, these are rarely quiet games, and this is no exception. We got castles by white. We got D6. We got C3, castles, and then the move H3. And white is basically telling black there is going to be no pieces in here at all, bro. There's not going to be no bishop G4s, knight G4s, no knight D4s, knight B4s. All of your pieces need to stay in they spots. So we got the move H6. Both sides just kind of created some look for their king. You never know when you may need it. And we do have the move a rook to E1, which is a very logical move. At some point, maybe if you can get D4 in, this rook will kind of be opened up just a little bit. So it'd be all good. But after we see the move H6, instead of the move rook to E1, something that was maybe a little bit more aggressive was just going B4 immediately. And then after the bishop goes back to B6, stomping A4 on the board and saying, hey, man, what you trying to do? You're probably going to see the move A5 and then B5, knight goes to E7, and then knight B to D2. And like I said, this is a little bit more aggressive. This is definitely a way to play, but, we play rook to E1, right? We got the move A6. We do want to kind of create some space for our bishop to back up if it's necessary, because B4 is always an idea, for sure. We do see the move A4. And I mean, A6 was also kind of being, sneaky with preparing B5 too. But Firouzja says, hey, man, I like my bishop on C4, man, so you're not knocking my stuff away. So we do see the move A5. We got knight B to D2. We got bishop to E6. And we're not worried about the trade because the knight is going to take back and you're going to be all good. So we do see the move B3. We got rook over to E8. And then the novelty of the game wishes bishop to B2. And it wasn't like the absolute best move in the position, but it makes a lot of sense just simply because white in this particular position, they have set their pieces up for a very successful D4 pawn push. So we got the knight on this square, we got the bishop on this square, we got this pawn on this square, and we are primed and ready to make the move D4. So before white can get D4 in, black says, hey, man, I want to try to make D4 impossible for you to play. So I'm going to go ahead and play the move D5. Because I'm going to hit your bishop, right? You kind of have some time, but I mean, you're going to be allowing the captures all the way down here. And I mean, you're kind of getting your center completely ripped up. So instead of, trying to counterattack with D4, which isn't quite nicely timed here, we do see the move bishop to B5. We got pawn taking E4, pawn taking E4. So as you can see, black is basically the one that kind of like, change the structure, and it is quite a little bit in their favor here. We do see the move knight to H5, which even though it looks maybe strange by putting the knight on the rim, this is a very logical move, because the thing that you have to kind of think about as far as white is concerned is this square for this knight does kind of look a little bit juicy. So you got to be kind of careful. So the knight does come to C4. We see queen over to F6. And like I said, I mean, black, they are definitely in a very, very nice position. They kind of have a little something going on. They got all their pieces developed. The thing with white in this particular situation, since they were not able to push the move D4 successfully, they kind of put their bishop in not like the absolute best spot. They don't really have the ability to push C4. So this bishop is not quite as good as you would like for it to be. As you can see, these bishops for black are much better. So, you know, it's just little stuff like that that kind of adds up and gives somebody a better position, you know, over another person. So we do see the move bishop taking c6, pawn taking c6, and then knight c takes e5, which might kind of seem like it wins a pawn. But we actually have the really, really beautifully seen move, bishop takes h3. And we have just discovered an attack on this knight. So if we got this situation going on, we are going to be getting an extra knight, you know, to the good. And also, you really don't want to move this knight because you are looking at this here, and this is like, you know, pretty bad. So we do see the move coming back to the knight coming back to d3. And we have come to a point in the game that we have an only move that you can make in the position. Now, like, keep in mind for black, I mean, they are basically willing to give up this bishop in this particular position, right? So they have to put the maximum amount of pressure on white if they are going to be going into the actual piece sacrifice. So like I said, in this particular position, you actually have one move that just completely maximizes the pressure that you have on white. So go ahead and pause the video and see if you can find that move. Okay, so I think some of you guys might be thinking that it is a bishop move. Like, you're thinking, okay, I got to move my bishop somewhere, like maybe back here or something like that. You actually leave your bishop put. The move that I am looking for is rook a to d8. The thing about it is, when you move the knight back to d3, you are counterattacking on this bishop here. But the problem in this particular situation is this knight is in front of this queen. So if you can pin this queen down, if you can pin this knight down, knight to f4 just looks way juicier. So to defend against this, it might kind of seem counterintuitive because you kind of want the knight over here protecting things. But knight to d4 is basically the only way that you survive and defend this position as well. You have to free up the f3 square for your queen. So after you do see the move queen to d6, you got queen over to f3. And this is your way to like counterattack and defend your position. You know, this is just what it looks like right here. You also kind of had to protect the e4 pawn too, so that is definitely something. But after we saw the move knight to d3, Wesley did not play that. He actually played the move queen to g6, which actually kind of gives Firouzja, if he can find it, because this is definitely, you know, a dicey position for white to have to try to play. You know, white has to start finding some only moves in this position, and I mean, we'll see if Firouzja can do that. We do see the move knight to a4, and this is a highly crucial tempo simply because you're attacking the queen now. You've managed to free this square up, and you are attacking the queen. So the queen does come down to g5. You got knight taking c5, queen taking h4, and then pawn taking h3. And as you notice, you know, white does get two pieces for it, but black they still have a really nice attack going. And so in this particular position, they actually have a really, really nice move that they can play. And in the game, you actually go queen to g5, which kind of seems like it does the same thing, but it actually kind of removes an attacker away from what you have going on. And you kind of want to add more in. When you sacrifice the piece, one of the main things that you want to try to do is you want to try to always keep up the pressure as much as possible on your opponent and literally don't let up. And so queen going back to g5, it did check. It is eyeing this, you know, knight on c5 that's undefended. But it does allow white to kind of like, you know, defend himself. And like I said, you are removing an attacker from the position. So after we see that, we see queen to g4, and then the queen does take on c5. And then we do have c4. So, you know, we kind of have a little something going on, even though it's going to be kind of hard to checkmate black on g7 because this knight is so, you know, beautifully protecting the situation. So if we go back to the position that I was showing you before, after the pawn takes g3, like I said, you want to keep the pressure up on black. You want to add attackers. You know, you want to kind of try to get these rooks into the game, right? So there is a really, really nice move, rook to e5 in this position. So not only does it pretty much do the same thing that the queen did before, but now you are ready to bring this rook over here, and it can be kind of devastating. You know, black definitely has some room over here, but I mean, they're kind of running out of spots. You got the knight possibly coming in here. You got this rook swinging over. And this bishop, like I said, is not really doing a great job in this diagonal at the moment. So you kind of have to be kind of careful. So the knight would probably, so, you know, if you're trying to think, okay, I want to save this knight and, you know, so I'm not down a piece, you would be looking at rook going to g5 with check, the king sliding to f1, pretty much only move. It is the only move. Queen to h3 with check. The king going up to e2, and now you have the other rook coming into the game. So you see, it's subtle, but it's a little bit of a difference between moving the queen up and taking on c5 than being able to do this situation where these rooks. So this is really, really what Wesley So needed to do to follow up that attack. But it was a very, very sound, sacrifice that he did make. So it was definitely greatly timed. But like I said, we did move to this situation here. We see a rook a to b8, and then we do see the move e5, and we have now just disconnected this queen from this knight. So we do play the move g6, and this allows a really, really nice move that Firouzja can play, and that is actually bishop to a3. And you are trying to knock this queen away, and you definitely have some tactics in the position. And so we do see queen going back to b6. You definitely don't want to lose your queen. But we have actually come to a point in the game where I have a second guess the move for you. It's a really nice tactical shot that white has in the position. Go ahead and try to guess that move. Okay, so, I don't know how easy or hard this move would actually be, but if you notice that this pawn is protected by this pawn, and there is a way to undermine that. And if you can do all of that, you can actually have a valid argument for trying to win this knight with, something kind of to this effect. You do have the move e6. And so this is the move that I was looking for. And this was the move that Firouzja actually found in the game. And if, black is not careful, they might go into something like rook takes, pawn takes, and then, like I mentioned before, undermining this knight by moving the pawn away. Queen takes g6 with check, and the knight goes back to g7, and then you have bishop to b2. And as opposed to before, this bishop is monstrous now on this diagonal. So you have managed to, do some great things. So this is one possibility. But in the game, we actually, after we see the move e6, so that's something that you had to be careful about as black. In the move, we actually see the move c5, which, this is like such a completely dominant position for white. You really didn't have a whole lot of options in this position, but you definitely want to defend against what I had just mentioned before. So after we see the move c5, we see pawn taking f7, king taking f7, and then we do see the move queen to d7 with check. The king goes up to f8. You kind of have to still, maintain, this rook because, it was attacked by the other rook. So the queen does come down to d5, and this is kind of like a rat situation. You're like, okay, this kind of sucks, bro, because you got this king on this dark square, right? You got this bishop about to attack right here. So, what do you do? Do you move the queen somewhere? Do you move the king somewhere? Kind of how do you do this? Because this is check coming up. So, Wesley So goes king to g7, which basically does sidestep you out of all of that stuff. It does allow bishop taking c5, but Wesley So does find a really, really nice, kind of almost like life-saving Zweishinzug move, and that is the move knight to f6. You really kind of want to dislodge, this queen from the situation, and you don't really have a lot of goodness that you can do. So pretty much one of the only things that you can do in this position is actually take on b6. There was one other option, but neither one of them are really desirable. Bishop takes b6, and then you do have the move knight takes d5, and then the rook does take e8, and it is in this position that Wesley So actually resigns the game. Now, you can see that this bishop is on pre, you can see that this knight is on pre, so you kind of can see that there's a little bit of something going on in the position, right? It might maybe seem like you can kind of wiggle out of this some kind of way, right? But the problem is both continuations that literally make a shred of sense, they both completely horribly lose. And I will show you what those two are. If you wanted to go and say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and take this rook, then you can take rook takes e8. But after the bishop does take on a5, the most important thing about it is this knight is still on pre. You have to move this knight somewhere. You can counterattack with rook to a8, which would be something legitimate as well. And the bishop would just back up, but they would be dominating this knight. So the knight would have to back up probably to here to here. This pawn is definitely very weak. And then now after you move the bishop, you have a completely passed pawn. And, it could score a touchdown pretty easily. But if you want to go the other way, after rook took e8, you might say, hey, man, I'll go down rook takes b6, right? But this does allow pawn taking d5. And, even though the other one didn't look as bad as this one, this is still pretty miserable. They're both really, really bad. So Wesley So seeing all of that, he said, hey, man, I'm going to go ahead and just, I'm going to go ahead and do my thing. So, like I said, rook it down to e5 when he was in the height of his attack, that definitely would have been something that would have been interesting to see. But That is that game. So Haley Mamnoon, Meraming Salamat, Merci beaucoup, and I will see you guys next time.